We are happy to accept your questions, and after Secretary McDonough's opening remarks, I'll ask as many as time permits. To submit a question online, please email headliners@press.org and put VA in the subject line. For our C-SPAN and public radio audiences, please be aware that in the audience today are members of the general public, so any applause or reaction you hear is not necessarily from the working press. It is now my pleasure to introduce this distinguished head table. Please stand when your name is called. Starting on my far right is Tom Young, commander of the American Legion Post 20, which is affiliated with the National Press Club. Brianna Camara, Vision 1 Patient Experience Officer for the VA New England Healthcare System. Carla Babb, Pentagon correspondent for VOA News. Kevin Wensing, Managing Director of Wensing Enterprises and retired U.S. Navy veteran and organizer of today's luncheon. We'll get to you in a moment. Lori Russo, President of Stanton Communications and co-lead of the NPC Headliners team. To my left, Jen Judson, Land Warfare Reporter for Defense News and the 115th President of the National Press Club. Lynn Thiem, Assistant Director of Customer Experience for the Veterans Benefits Administration. Sakshi Jain, Senior Associate of Aptiva Resources and Consultant to the VA. Richard Barbado, Client and Employee Experience Officer of the VHA Readjustment Counseling Service. And Max Lederer, Publisher of Stars and Stripes. When our guest today was sworn in as the 11th Secretary of Veterans Affairs on February 8th, 2021, he pledged to increase veterans' access to care and benefits and to improve outcomes for them. He identified 3 core responsibilities as his highest priorities: providing veterans with timely, world-class health care, ensuring that these veterans and their families have access to the benefits they have earned, and honoring our veterans with a final resting place that is a lasting tribute to their service. But Secretary McDonough also faced a host of challenges that would require vast amounts of time and resources. The persistent and worrisome problems of veterans' homelessness, untreated mental health issues, and an uptick in suicides. Structural issues at the VA that created backlogs of claims and long waits for benefits. Reports of serious side effects from the exposure to burn pits that was common among service members overseas. IT problems that landed the VA on the GOA's high-risk list for cybersecurity issues. And just this weekend, the New York Times released an investigation that describes how many of the troops sent to bombard the Islamic State with tens of thousands of high-explosive shells, which may have also sent shockwaves through the crew members, including their brains, are now reporting severe headaches, memory loss, hallucinations, and strange behaviors. But despite being only the 2nd civilian leader of the VA, McDonough has a long career of tackling tough issues. He served as the White House Chief of Staff in the Obama administration, and prior to that, he was Principal Deputy National Security Advisor. He's also served in senior leadership and policy-making positions in the U.S. House of Representatives. He graduated from St. John's University in Minnesota and received his master's degree from Georgetown University. And his efforts are causing some headway at the VA already. According to the Military Times this morning, VA leaders say they set all-time records in healthcare, benefits delivery, and veteran outreach efforts in fiscal 2023. As Veterans Day approaches, it is both a time to honor our veterans for their great service and sacrifice, and a time to take stock. By the way, if you are a veteran, please stand up. Thank you for your service. Thank you. Today, we are eager to hear from Secretary McDonough about the progress he has made on his stated priorities and what remains to be done. Please join me in a warm National Press Club welcome to Secretary Denis McDonough.
Eileen, thank you for the nice introduction. It's great to be here with everybody. Good afternoon. It's nice to see old friends, stakeholders, partners, veterans. This year marks the 50th anniversary of America's withdrawal from Vietnam. This year and every year, we remember the 58,220 American patriots who were killed or are still missing in that war. And we honor the 9 million Americans who raised their right hands and committed to serve and defend our Constitution as members of the armed forces during that tumultuous period in our country's history. One veteran, Everett Alvarez, ejected from his A-4 Skyhawk on August 5th, 1964, shot down over North Vietnam. He landed in the water among a fleet of Vietnamese fishing boats where he was quickly taken captive and became the first of 766 American prisoners of war in Vietnam. Lieutenant Alvarez endured over 8 years of captivity in the infamous Hanoi Hilton, marking the passage of time on the walls, celebrating his own Catholic Mass each Sunday. He chose to hang on to every motivation he could muster. Thoughts of home, the strength of faith, trust in his country, and a deep sense of duty to his fellow POWs. On February 12, 1973, shortly after the United States signed the Paris Peace Accords, Lieutenant Alvarez was finally freed. His service didn't end when he got back home. He remained in the Navy, retired as a commander, continued serving the nation out of uniform as Deputy Administrator of the VA and as an advocate for his fellow vets and families. But my favorite part of Commander Alvarez's amazing story is what happened while he was recuperating after coming home. He met a wonderful woman, Tammy, and asked her out on a date. That date, their first date, was at the White House at an event honoring Commander Alvarez and his fellow Vietnam War POWs. It's kind of a big date. Just a few months later, on October 27th, 1973, they were married. And just last week, that means they celebrated 50 years of marriage. So that 50 years of history since the end of the Vietnam War marks our veterans having continued to make this country strong. Commander Everett Alvarez and Tammy are on another date here this afternoon. So congratulations and thank you for your courageous service to the nation. Veterans Day is Saturday. It's a day we remember the millions of brave men and women, just like Everett Alvarez, who fought our nation's wars and stood guard over our country during the periods of restless peace in between those wars. It's a day to reflect on what veterans and their families have done, what they've sacrificed for our country and for each of us. Because here's the thing. When someone signs up to serve our country in the military, we make them a promise. If you fight for us, we will fight for you. If you serve us, we will serve you. If you take care of us when you come home, we'll take care of you. Now, our country as a whole makes that promise, and I'll say more about that in a minute. And at VA, it's our privilege and it's our honor to keep it. So I'll start, as Eileen said, with an update on what we're doing at VA to keep our promise to veterans. Since President Biden took office, VA has delivered more care and more benefits to more veterans than ever before. When it comes to the benefits vets have earned and deserve, we're processing their claims faster than ever before. Here's an example. Just over a year ago, the President signed his historic legislation designed to care for veterans who were exposed to toxins in Vietnam and in those 30 years of war in Central Command, the PACT Act. Sergeant Major Kenneth Erickson is one of those vets. He served in the Army for nearly 30 years, combat tours spanning from the jungles of Vietnam to the deserts of Operation Desert Storm. Last May, the Sergeant Major was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, and he filed for those toxic exposure benefits. Our VA benefits team expedited the review of his claim at direction of the President. In less than a week, Sergeant Major Erickson was granted 100% service connection. And his benefits were backdated to August 10th, 2022, the day the President signed that bill into law. Because of that law, Sergeant Major Erickson has one less thing to worry about in what may be the most demanding battle of his life. That's what we mean when we talk about fulfilling that promise. Altogether, VA processed nearly 2 million claims in 2023, shattering the previous year's record, to that point, the highest ever, by 16%. That meant 1.5 million vets and their families, and importantly, survivors, received over $163 billion in earned benefits. We're also providing more care to veterans. This year, VA delivered more than 116 million healthcare appointments, exceeding last year's number by more than 3 million appointments. And it's not just more care, it's better care, world-class care. Study after study shows we deliver better health outcomes than the rest of the healthcare system for our vets, which is a big reason why nearly 90% of vets who come to VA now trust us to deliver their outpatient care. 5.4 million people, including 4.1 million veterans, are taking their final rest in VA national cemeteries. And we've doubled our online Veteran Legacy Memorial Program to nearly 10 million veterans, a digital platform, keeping veterans' stories alive long after they're gone. Now, behind all these statistics are veterans. Veterans like Commander Everett Alvarez and like Sergeant Major Kenneth Erickson. They're our neighbors, our friends, they're teachers, civic leaders, coaches, loved ones. They're continuing to serve America to defend and to strengthen our democracy long after they take off the uniform. And all our work at VA adds up to the single statistic that matters most. Veterans' lives improved, veterans' lives saved by the work that we do together. Now that's what we've done. I want to talk a minute about how we've done it and who, importantly, does it. The VA workforce has been delivering for vets during a period of rapid change, teaching us vivid lessons that have forever altered the way VA does business. First, while the COVID-19 public health emergency came to an end 6 months ago, let's not forget that VA's clinicians and frontline staff provided world-class care through what has been a devastating, once-in-a-century pandemic. From the moment that pandemic hit, VA's public servants mobilized around one core mission: saving and improving the lives of veterans, their families, caregivers, and survivors. They worked long hours, sacrificed precious time with their families, risked their own lives, and by extension, the lives of their loved ones to serve veterans. Because you see, that's the promise we make. And there are veterans at home today with their families right now, happy and healthy, because of the best workforce in the federal government. And I am incredibly grateful to every one of them. Second, today's service members and vets represent the most deployed force in our nation's history. And our thoughts are with the brave men and women serving in uniform in this period of heightened readiness and urgent security challenges in the Middle East and around the world. Through this 33-year intense period since September 11th, 2001, many have experienced multiple deployments, came home gripped by both the visible and invisible wounds of war. All of them, each of them, were exposed to particulate matter and toxins from burn pits and other sources. Months or years later, some have developed, and some might yet still develop, conditions that followed them home from war. That impact on their lives, in some cases, will continue long after the guns of war have silenced. It's our job as a nation to provide those vets, families, caregivers, and survivors the benefits and care for those conditions. And that's exactly what we're doing. These two developments, these two very important developments, the pandemic and our national commitment to recognize the need to care for burn pit exposure, have catalyzed a dramatic period of change and reform at VA, revolutionizing the way we do business. But one thing hasn't changed, and that's keeping the vet, each of you, at the heart of everything we do. So let me share 4 lessons we've learned during VA's new veteran-centric era. First, we're fitting our care and service into veterans' lives, not expecting veterans to build their lives around us. If we're going to keep our promise to vets, we need to meet them where they are, when they need us, without exception. So we've reached out to vets and listened to what they wanted. Using a veteran-centered design approach, we developed tools to ensure vets and their caregivers have positive, productive experiences when engaging the VA. We overhauled va.gov to make it the digital front door for all services VA offers vets. Medical appointments, filing a claim, applying for education benefits, all go through that same front door. And the new VA Health and Benefits mobile app gives vets access to that digital front door, meaning that vets with a smartphone can have all their VA services right in the palm of their hand, wherever they are. So, while a vet's waiting to pick up a kid from school, out on a lunch break, watching a football game, they can refill a prescription, send a secure message to their doc, take a quick telehealth appointment, access their travel reimbursement, and more. It's working. Not perfectly, but it's working. We've seen a staggering 3,000% jump in vets' virtual home visits since 2020. Nearly 28 million home visits in that time. By offering care that's built into vets' lives in the community via telehealth and alongside focused processes and technological advances, we decreased average wait times in nearly 60% of our facilities. The same is true at VBA, where we reduced our average time to complete a claim by 15 days in the last year alone. And at the Board of Veterans Appeals, where using tele-appeals helped us set a single-year record of 103,000 decisions made last year. As a result, vets' trust in VA has grown stronger. Again, it's not 100%, but it's stronger. And here's the point. We at VA are about shaping solutions for vets that meet them, meet you, where you are, that are adapted to you and to your needs, rather than expecting you to adapt to us. Second lesson, VA's people, not machines, not computers, not buildings. VA's people keep our promise to vets. From ending veteran homelessness to delivering toxic exposure benefits, none of this happens without the best federal workforce in the federal government. They're the most passionate, highest performing public servants in this country. They're folks who want to make a real difference in the lives of vets, the lives of survivors, caregivers, and families. And I am proud and I am privileged that they consider me their colleague for this brief period I get to work with them. And we owe it to them to have a workforce sized to meet this mission that can ensure we operate to ensure veteran patient safety and high-quality claims decisions. So this has been a year, since the last time I saw you, a year of hiring at record pace, while retaining our excellent staff. And by the way, not retaining our not excellent staff. This year, we strengthened our partnerships with our unions, and both the Veteran Health Administration and the Veterans Benefits Administration have had their highest growth rates in more than 15 years. VHA now has more than 400,000 employees providing health care to veterans. And with 32,000 employees, VBA is bigger than it's ever been. We've also increased employee retention, even in one of the hottest labor markets in modern history, a market with profound healthcare provider shortages. Why are we able to grow our workforce in this context? Because people want to work for you, for our nation's heroes. People like Shelby Long, a VA nurse. For her, serving veterans at the Bay Pines VA is a family affair. Her brother, a surgical nurse at Bay Pines. And they're both following in their mom's footsteps, nurse in the Bay Pines Community Living Center. And Navy vet Krishan Lloyd, a veteran service representative, what we call a VSR, at the Chicago Regional Office. Krishan was inspired to join VA because of the thorough, responsive care his VSR gave him when he was transitioning out of the Navy. And then there's Hector Rodriguez, a Marine vet. Hector went from being homeless on the streets of San Diego to working as a caretaker in the Miramar National Cemetery, thanks to VA's compensated work therapy program. Hector regularly goes back to his former homeless camp, hoping to inspire and support other vets in crisis. Veterans helping veterans. Nothing better. Third, VA can't, and by the way, VA doesn't do this work alone. Each of us has a piece of this puzzle, from the White House to the Hill, faith-based and community groups, to veteran service organizations. From private sector to the universities, we all play a critical role. These partnerships are helping us tackle some of our most pressing priorities on preventing veteran suicide, on ending veteran homelessness, on improving healthcare access, and more. We just launched the second round of grants under the Staff Sergeant Parker Gordon Fox Suicide Prevention Program. These grants go to local organizations, implementing innovative new suicide prevention programming where veterans live and work, meaning that we're funding local people who know their vets. Organizations like Nation's Finest, which provides transitional and permanent supportive housing for vets in rural communities across California, Arizona, and Nevada. This team recently helped a pregnant vet fleeing domestic violence. Think of that sentence. Pregnant vet fleeing domestic violence. Talk about a phrase that should not exist in the English language. They enrolled her in prenatal care at VA, connected her to veteran resources, and provided her with temporary housing. Just one veteran of hundreds that nation's finest helps every year. And working with state, local, and community partners, we're providing more housing and wraparound services for vets, homeless vets, and at-risk vets, more of them than ever before. As we did last year, we're on pace again this year to exceed our goal of permanently housing 38,000, exceed our goal of permanently housing 38,000 homeless veterans, permanently housing. And part of the way we provide more care and more care to more veterans than ever before is through the community care program. Succeeding in the community means scheduling appointments faster. We're doing that. It means paying our bills more quickly. We're doing that too. And it means incorporating the records of that care in the community into our vets' records so that we can recognize the full promise of VA's integrated healthcare system. Allowing providers and vets to work together to build joint plans of treatment and medical interventions. A psychiatrist seeing a vet for PTSD and TBI can see their vet's neurological records. Then the team can huddle up with the vet and their loved ones to discuss coordinated care, along with the neurologists, social workers, clinical pharmacists, primary care providers, and any other team member involved in that vet's care. That's the integrated treatment that improves outcomes, and that VA promises. But if we're not getting the records of the veteran care in the community back, we decrease that efficiency. We increase cost. And most importantly, we reduce effectiveness for the vet. So we have to see our community partners as just that, partners in our quest to provide integrated care, integrated veteran-centric care to high-quality outcomes. Now, as I stand before you in this august room, National Press Club, I have to underscore our partnership with the press. We cannot keep our promise to vets without you. The journalists who tell veteran stories. Journalists like the one who's still working, actually, in the back, Patricia Keim. You know, Patricia's stories make VA better because they trust, vets trust Patricia's reporting. Veterans, VA employees, and other stakeholders, knowing they trust her, talk to her when they see that something is not working the way it should, or maybe not working the way we tell them it's working. So her reporting and her stories help us better understand what veterans experienced in war, what they're going through here at home, and how we can better help them, oftentimes bringing something to our attention that we didn't even know was happening. A couple months ago, Patricia noticed a software issue on va.gov website, you know, the one I was just bragging about, preventing some vets from submitting their claims appeals. She asked us for a comment. Alerted to the problem by Patricia, we were able to immediately fix the bug, reach out to vets who were impacted, alert Congress to the issue, and prevent similar issues from happening again in the future. As I said, Patricia's here, so I'll speak directly to her. Your work's having a direct and positive impact on the life of vets. You make us better to serve vets by holding us to account. You and your mates, people like Leo, sitting right here, Leo Shane, Quill Lawrence, Ellen Milheiser, Ben Kessling, Eric Katz, Courtney Kuby, Jory Heckman, and Orion Donovan Smith, are helping us serve veterans far better than we ever could on our own. And as Eileen just mentioned, just yesterday, investigative reporting from David Phillips in the New York Times uncovered the unseen TBI risks faced by soldiers and Marines who operated heavy artillery weapons in the fight against ISIL in Syria. If you haven't read it, you must. Because of his reporting, VA will be reaching out to those vets who served in the field artillery units to ensure they're receiving the care They need, importantly, the care they have earned. Those vets served in Syria and Iraq, making them eligible for that care under the PACT Act. Several of the vets profiled in Dave's piece are characterized as having received less than honorable discharges. We call them OTHs, other than honorables. While VA cannot change a vet's character of discharge, vets are not automatically disqualified from VA services because of discharge status. Are not. In fact, over the last 10 years, VA has granted benefits or care to 73% of the veterans with other than honorable discharge status who have presented to us. So, to those vets in that heartbreaking story, and any vets watching today, we want to serve you. Please apply now. Please reapply if you've been denied before. And we need everybody's help, every single person in this room's help, communicating with vets so they get the care they need and the benefits they deserve. Fourth and finally, we've seen again and again that earning veterans' trust is critical to everything we do. Trust means many things. It means making it easier for vets to get care and benefits, ensuring that their VA services are effective, and that they feel respected when they come to VA. There's no greater privilege than having that trust, and there's no higher bar to meet, and there's no bigger problem than when we lose it. Since VA began measuring trust in 2016 through something we call the V signal, those three measures of trust and the veteran experience, ease, was it easy to get your appointment? Effectiveness, was it effective? And did you feel respected? Or emotion, ease, effectiveness, and emotion, each one of them has increased. VA currently has 174 active surveys, bringing in more than 12 million responses over the life of this V signal, allowing us to hear directly from vets about your experience at VA. And all of this information is released to the public through our quarterly VA trust reports and at va.gov/trust, tying trust metrics with our performance. 3 of the VA teammates who help manage this intensive survey process that helps us ensure the veteran experience and trust in VA's care and benefits joined me at this lunch today. They all work in frontline veteran experience roles, helping VA measure and learn how to build better trust from our patients, from our customers, from the people we work for. Brianna Camera went into healthcare because her dad was sick when she was in high school. Her grandpa was an Army vet, but he didn't trust VA care when he left the military. And that's her passion, making damn sure other vets have a good experience with VA. Linda Thiem comes from a long tradition of naval service. And while she didn't serve, she often says that there's seawater in her family's blood. Well, her son joined the Navy as a rescue swimmer. And that is when Lynn decided that's when Lynn was working on digitizing VA's paper records. She went on to lead the very first veteran experience project on machine learning. And today, she brings her experience to help VA make data-driven decisions to our claims process decisions. And Richard Barbado served as an Army officer in the 82nd Airborne Division. Can I get it all the way here? He fought in the initial invasion of Iraq, and in the years after, we've lost 40 paratroopers he served with to suicide, including a best friend. Many of them rest today across the river in Section 60 at Arlington National Cemetery. Richard came to VA to honor them He says, "This has never felt like work, it's a mission. I wake up every morning because of this mission. You see why I'm so excited and humbled to be part of this team. They share a deep devotion to keeping our promise to vets that characterizes their colleagues as well. And boy, do they demand high standard from us, their teammates. Now, our mission is far from over. There are enormous challenges ahead, not least meeting the demand of millions of veterans who have filed claims under the PACT Act and who will qualify to be enrolled in VA healthcare. But I know that with VA teammates leading the way, public servants like Brianna, Lynn, Richard, VA will continue serving vets every bit as well as you have served us. And as we look to the future, we're not trying to build a VA that goes back to some old norm. Instead, we're going to do better for vets. We're going to continue to be better for vets. And this future at VA isn't because of me. In fact, it was well underway without me. It's because of the 450,000 VA employees in your communities and neighborhoods across the country who keep vets at the heart of the care that they provide. So again, to all the veterans here today and those watching, thank you for everything. And to the Press Club, my thanks for all that you do, holding us accountable to veterans and telling their story in the powerful ways that you do. God bless you all, and may God bless our nation's service members, our veterans, their families, caregivers, and survivors. Now, let's get some questions.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome. I tried to filibuster. Is there any time for questions?
We'll do rapid fire questions. Okay. So thank you for addressing the New York Times report.
Yes.
So I just want to confirm that you said that the PACT Act should cover those impacted by the high explosive shelling. And
yeah, thank you. It's a really important story. It appeared yesterday. Again, I encourage you to take a very hard look at it. Remember what the PACT Act says. If you served during 30 years of war in Central Command, and you stepped in that AOR, that begins your process of eligibility. Now, the PACT Act goes a step further and says, if you have any of a series of more than 25 conditions, right, then we presume those conditions to be connected to your service. My point is not that all the conditions that Dave Phillips reported are covered by the PACT Act. My point is that having served in Central Command, there is a 10-year window during which our veterans qualify for care. So we want to make sure that we see them, and we want to make sure that we are in touch with them to tell them that we can see them, and we want to make sure then that they file claims so that those conditions that they may be experiencing, that we'll work through with them, can get service connected. So I hope that answers the question.
And then speaking of the PACT Act, amid retention and recruitment challenges, how has the VA handled the unprecedented influx in claims?
It's a really good question. We anticipated and hoped that Congress would pass a new law on this, but we weren't waiting. So in May of 2021, President Biden, using his own authority, and I think you've all now seen reporting about how strongly and how personally he feels about this issue, began connecting three initial conditions to service in Central Command and exposure to burn pits and toxins, and importantly, just plain old particulate matter. All you guys who were over there, you remember what that was, right? You're in a constant sandstorm. So just ingesting that amount of silica is a problem. So the experience of May, June, July, August of 2021 showed us that we were going to need more people. And to his great good credit, VBA career employee Tom Murphy said, hey, we need to start hiring now. for the 3 conditions the president has established and for anything Congress establishes coming forward. So we've been hiring at VBA since September 2021, which is why we have more than 32,000 employees at VBA right now. The claims process is overwhelmingly moved by a simple entry point, which is more people reviewing claims. So that's one way we're addressing this. A second way, meaning we're hiring more people. That's going to take us a little time to train all those people, but we've been hiring them since September 21. So that means we're adding fully trained people into the claims review process almost monthly now. That's the first thing. Second thing is we're also looking at the process itself and figuring out where can we do away with unnecessary steps? Where can we avoid unnecessary C&P exams, compensation and pension exams? And where we need them, let's make sure we have even more personnel working contract and pension exams. That's the second way we're doing it. The third way we're doing it is we're trying to modernize this process. So we've been undertaking an automation process in our claims process at VBA, where we use an automated decision support tool. It's still humans that make the decisions. And thank goodness we do, because nobody is more empathetic and more likely to make a decision in the interest of the veteran than our employees who have dedicated their lives to veterans. But the automated process can help do what machines do best, which is go aggregate data, consolidate that data, bin that data, and then present that to the VSR or the rating VSR, the RVSR, so that they can make a final decision. That process is proving to work well, but we're not betting on massive returns in that over the near term. That's a longer term effort for us. So those are the 3 ways we're working on it. Please, and look, last thing is we're about to report later this week on this. We are putting out every 2 weeks how we're doing on the claims. We're not hiding this from anybody. We put this out every 2 weeks on Friday morning. You can find that data. We're putting it out there. I want no veteran to be dissuaded from filing their claim. We are going to work through those claims. We're doing it, as I said, 15 days faster per claim this year than last. Still 120 some days on average, but we're getting faster, and we will stay at this until we get every one of them done.
Thank you. There's a couple other questions with the PACT Act. Can you give us an update on whether there is any progress on making constricted bronchiolitis a disability rating?
Yeah, so I think I got to be really careful what I say here because the way we do this is through rulemaking, and I want to be careful to not somehow knock off kilter the Administrative Procedures Act. But we're seized of this issue, and we're trying to get to the bottom of it. There's really 3 questions here. Actually, really 2. One, how do you diagnose constrictive bronchiolitis? Right now, the condition is a relatively new one recognized in the medical community, and the process by which we confirm the condition is so invasive, namely a lung biopsy, as to make it not in the veteran's interest to carry out that action. The second question is, how do we categorize that in the VBA system such that the benefits can be paid to the veteran? Let me just underscore that. That's the process that we'll go through in terms of rulemaking, and I'm not going to say anything about it to not compromise it. But what I will say is that veterans can still get their benefits, their compensation benefits, even as we work through this process. So if there's any veterans who are struggling with that, I want them to be in touch directly with us, and we'll work that through.
Thank you. Can you discuss the impact of the VA rule change in rates VA pays for special modes of transportation will have on impacted veterans' ability to access medical treatment and emergency transportation for complications stemming from burn pit exposure?
Super interesting question. I'm not sure precisely what the question is. The questioner in the audience? Yeah. Can you just give me a couple, are we talking about the rural travel reimbursement rates? Or are you talking about the contract for ambulances and air ambulances?
Talking about how the proposed reduction in reimbursement rates for air and ground ambulances will impact both the availability of ambulances
I see.
as well as the ability of those vets to access emergency care for any complications that may arise as a result of their exposure to toxic.
Got it. Good. So let me just start from the top. I don't know who's proposing a reduction, but it's not us. What we have said is if you do not have a contract with VA to provide the service you provide, we will have no choice but to contract with you at Medicare reimbursement rates. Okay, that's what the proposal says. This is a proposal that's designed to ensure that VA addresses a problem that the Inspector General has raised with us several times, including in a very hard-hitting report, which I just reread last week in 2018. That report said that there is, that the way VA pays for emergency ambulance and air ambulance puts at risk taxpayer interests. So we are going through a process where, because VA alone among, as near as we can tell, alone among healthcare systems in the country, pays for each individual ambulance cash in that exchange. Meaning, but for a number of cases where we have a contract with a provider, we're just paying cash for each run. We cannot find another hospital system that does it that way, which I think is why the IG hit us upside the head with it. And so we're trying through this rulemaking process to get contracts in each individual market. We at the national level have not set a price. And why would we? We don't know anything about individual markets. Those contracts are being negotiated, I hope, in each of the individual hospital systems in the VA. So I hope we get to the bottom of this and work this out. Because getting that really tough IG report in 2018, I think should have been enough. You know, I think we got to make sure that we're doing right by our vets and doing right by our taxpayers.
Thank you. Another one. An active duty captain in the Air Force sent in an email. The captain's father, who also served in the Air Force, passed away in 2013 from cancer developed from exposure to toxic burn pits while serving in the Middle East. The VA declared his death service-related in 2014, and the family qualifies for Chapter 35 VA benefits. However, when the captain applied for these benefits last year to help fund their graduate student studies, the VA told the captain that they did not qualify due to their active duty status.
So, first of all, thank you for an amazing family of service to that veteran. Is the name attached? You don't have to read the name, but is the name attached to the email?
I can get that for you.
Okay, let us just reach out to you directly and work the case, because I want to make sure that I don't misstate it here. So let us work the case, and we'll get to the bottom of it.
But is there any kind of exception for active duty military people?
Part of the reason I'm not answering the question is I'm not sure.
Okay.
Right, and I guess maybe the question would be, is it, well, so I'm just not sure. So let us get to the bottom of it.
Okay. All right. On to other issues.
All right.
On Friday, the Federal Times reported that roughly 40,000 low-income veterans and their survivors may owe money because of accounting errors over the past 12 years regarding their pensions. VA officials said they wouldn't collect the debt for now, but this follows a series of other technical issues related to disability claims that affected tens of thousands of veterans and delays in implementation of electronic health records in the PACT system. Why does the VA continue experiencing these expensive technical issues, and what is being done about this?
Yeah, it's a really good question. So I might just disaggregate these two questions. I think the issue that was reported in the Federal Times on Friday relates to a question of record keeping and self-certification for a particularly vulnerable group of veterans who get both different kinds of federal stipends or federal assistance and also get VA pension. And so the question is not whether there was a technical failing, but whether we were closely enough monitoring the self-certifications about how much those veterans were receiving in terms of federal funding and VA benefits. This is what I mean when I say that we want to be a VA that works to bring services to veterans, not to have them build their life around us. And so I don't think this was a technical failing as much as it may have been a policy execution failing over the course of more than 10 years. And in that scenario, we're going to study very closely whether that set of policy steps that were taken should be, made whole by the veterans, or whether we, if it was indeed VA that made the faulty calculations, whether we should take care of that. So that's what we mean that when we say that we're not collecting them for now. We're looking at how we address this in the context of a veteran-centric VA that makes sure that our programs are built around and into veterans' lives and respond to the veterans' needs, rather than, again, making sure that they follow, our various requirements, which at the end of the day are ours to implement, not the veterans.
But there are also other issues.
Sorry. Yeah, so there's there are definitely other issues, but I think you raised three. Well, I volunteered one with Patricia Kimes reporting. That is definitely those are definitely things where we are going to make mistakes, and when we find them, and when reporters ferret them out, when congressional staff members or congressional members of Congress or veterans themselves identify them for us, we're going to fix them. So that's the second batch. The third batch are big new technology overhauls, like the electronic health medical record. And that is something that we've been going at now for more than a decade. And it has been difficult to implement. Some of that is difficulty across a national, very complex healthcare system. Some of it is because technological advances like an electronic health record have proven difficult irrespective of the healthcare system in which you implement it. And some of it is because the technology is not, in all cases, everything you hope it would be. And so we're working through that on EHRM. But again, I don't think it speaks to a fundamental capacity one way or the other of our providers and our leaders at VA, where I think we are doing really positive things. I just call your attention to, as I said, a VA benefits and healthcare app, which is, we've been slowly rolling that out. We're now north of 1 million users. And the veteran experience on that, again, not uniformly, not 100% positive, but the ratings, including on the public app site, App Store ratings, are positive, overwhelmingly so. So we'll keep implementing each of these transparently, responsive to the problems that our veterans experience, that our stakeholders like the press and like congressional staff and congressional members identify for us. And by the way, VSOs. We're routinely hearing about veteran experience that's not up to snuff from our VSOs, and when we do, we'll fix it.
Okay. Robert Card, who was responsible for last month's mass shooting in Maine, underwent a medical evaluation while training at the U.S. Military Academy in New York. The Army directed that while on duty, he shouldn't be allowed to have a weapon, handle ammunition, or participate in live fire activity. It also declared him to be non-deployable. Why do you believe he was still a reservist and wasn't discharged? And if this was by the book, what needs to change?
Yeah, I'm just not in a position to comment on the decisions made in another federal agency. One, two, I'm really, obviously our hearts go out to the victims of this senseless act of violence in Lewiston. We are in very close coordination through our Vision 1 teammates and through our VA hospital in Portland to make sure that we're supporting victims, families, first responders, and supporting the state in this response.
The VA 4 years ago initiated the Veterans Legacy Memorial Project, meant to be an online repository of records of every veteran now deceased. It began with veterans interred at national and VA grant cemeteries. It has since expanded and now includes veterans buried in 87 different countries with records dating back to the American Revolution. Why did the VA embark on this project? What do you see as its role, and what does it mean to you?
Yeah, I think it's a really cool project, and it means a lot to me because, at least in the case of one veteran, it's very important to me. I've been able to go and add my voice on his site about what that veteran has meant to me. And that's the idea of the Veterans Legacy Memorial, the VLM. It's an opportunity for, it's developed and deployed and maintained by the National Cemetery Administration. We'll be communicating about this very aggressively this week, so please watch this space. But the idea is that it, like our national cemeteries, which are national treasures, where our veterans can be assured the dignified, lasting resting place commensurate with their honorable service in defense of the Constitution and our democracy. This is meant to be a living memorial where survivors, family members, in my case, a former player for my coach, we can update that legacy so that the country can come to understand the fullness of the work, the sacrifices, the benefits that our veterans have taken on our behalf. And so I encourage you guys to check out the Veterans Legacy Memorial through va.gov. And if you have any problems with that, get in touch with Patty Kimes, and then we'll fix it.
Thank you. Before I ask the last question, let me take a moment to thank the organizers of today's events, headliners, co-team leaders, Donna Laiwan Leger and Lori Russo. Today's headliner event coordinator, Kevin Wensing. Club events coordinator, Cecily Scott Martin. Club membership director, Kate Helster. Club executive director, Didier Saji. And thank you to all of you for participating in our conversation. It's also my honor to present you with our coveted National Press Club mug.
All right.
Is this your third one?
This is my third one.
Wow, not even set. That's great.
This is like the best china we got.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, so the last question is from the audience. This person says, my father is a 28-year-old Army veteran. He did not serve in combat and consequently feels strongly he did not earn VA benefits. What would you say to convince him his service warrants VA services?
Yeah, well, thanks so much. You know, when Congress authorizes and appropriates funding for those authorized programs every year, they do it pursuant to a very clear definition of who is and who is not a veteran. And what I'd say to your dad is that the care and the benefits that VA offers are related to, start at that very important moment when you raise your right hand and swear the oath to protect and defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And that's what you did for 28 years. Not only that, as you did that honorably. And that's the first thing I'd say to him. The second thing I'd say to him is, by the way, if you don't want the benefits, that's okay. But your spouse or your children might also benefit. They too sacrificed for those 28 years. They too served honorably and sacrificed at your side for those 28 years. Lastly, I mentioned a moment ago that one of the things we're doing is automating our decision process so that we can get automated decision support for the great VA employees who make these decisions. So what I tell veterans is, look, I know you really want to help your battle buddies, and you think maybe you don't deserve it and somebody else deserves it more. It could be that the most important thing you could do to help your battle buddy, given how we prosecute these claims now, is you could file that claim. Because you know what? That claim might tell us something about what your unit went through. In 28 years, you did a lot of vigorous training. In 28 years, you took on a lot of sacrifice. And it could be that we learned something about you, which, by the way, ends up being useful for other people in your units. This is particularly true for those vets who served in Central Command. We learn about you, means we learn about your unit, means we learn about the unit you relieved and the unit that relieved you. So these are your benefits that you earned when you swore that oath and when you served the way you did. These are benefits that may accrue to your spouse and to your children. And that act of filing a claim with us might be the piece of information that helps us complete the picture for other men and women in your unit. So please, please file the claim. Thank you.
Thank you. Meeting's over. Thanks.
All right.